Hi everyone and welcome along. Today I am in our garden in the wildflower meadow because it's looking amazing right now. So I've just got to have a go at painting these poppies and the various wildflowers. So grab your paints and let's get started. So we're going to paint a lovely scene using the full page and using some nice big washes with my large one wash brush. Now I don't know if you have already had a go at the cow parsley field, which I've just got to one side here. This was something we painted a few sessions back, so if you want to go and have a go at that, by all means do, but we're doing the same kind of approach. I'm using a block of watercolour paper, which means the paper pad is glued around all four sides to keep it anchored in place and to prevent warping. And I'm just mixing up some very dilute colour, and I've got this ginormous one wash flat brush, and I'm going to begin by wetting the paper. And I've sort of decided that this poppy meadow is going to be sort of somewhere in between the wildflower meadow in our garden and somewhere between I drove past a whole field of poppies yesterday and I thought that was amazing. So obviously our wildflower meadow has lots of other flowers in it, so I'm about to start bringing in some cobalt blue deep, just very gently. The sky is so incredibly blue today. We're enjoying a bit of a heat wave in the UK right now at the time of filming. So this brush, you link in episode notes below, but I've also got a really large sort of rounded pointed round, beg your pardon, but it's sort of somewhere between a pointed round and a mop brush, but it's also linked in the description below. It's just got a little bit more control to it. And I'm just creating a nice hazy sky. And then down below, I'm going to start bringing in the colours of the ground and the field, again very subtly. So I've got sap green here, I've also got green gold, and I've got a little bit of lemon yellow, which always has a little bit of green in it. So just want to introduce a bit of that very pale yellowy green in there. So that is sort of lemon yellow with the tiniest bit of sap green in, but if you have green gold you'll achieve the same thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the most of this wet page and start to paint in a few poppies off in the distance. Now we have to take into account a few factors today. It's a very hot day in the studio, so the page is going to dry quite fast, but at the same time, because poppies are red, that colour could really travel further than we want it to, so we're going to sort of go quite dilute with the red. But I am going to begin by just using a rigger brush. We're using all sorts of interesting brushes today. This is also in the episode notes, and I am going to start painting in a few stems in the wet and just watch them blend and feather in. So some are sort of going straight up. Then of course a poppy doesn't necessarily go straight, does it? It sort of can bend and fold. I'm also just trailing them off to the sides, making sure they're taller at the sides and just a little bit shorter, or at least they bend down over like that. So I'm going to take my size 2 brush and begin first with some poppies that have drooped over. These ones are the seed heads that haven't yet begun flowering. And then I'm going to take some cadmium red. I'm just sort of getting a cautious amount on my brush and I am going to just very minimally dab in some red. Now, it's very, very important that you do not overwork this colour, because the red and the blue are very far over the colour wheel from each other, and if they start to interact too much, we're going to get purple. So this is just beginning the composition, and I'm just adding a little extra dot of red in there towards the base, just to add a bit more to it. And now I'm going to bring in a little bit more green into the actual base of the painting. So I've got some sap green here. There's always a hair on my brush lurking somewhere, and you can see how the page is already starting to dry, and that's fine, but we just need to be mindful of it being such a hot day. So I'm just bringing in colour from the sides, both sides here, quite dilute sap green, and then cleaning off my brush and just allowing that colour to bleed down, maybe add a little bit more in. And we're just laying a foundation to paint in a bit more detail over the top. We're going to now allow this to dry, and then we can get some detail in. It's dry, completely dry. That didn't take long because it is so hot today. Right, I'm going to start painting some poppies then. So we've got a size 8 brush. I'm going to get lots of cadmium red onto my brush, and I'm just going to go for it. So what I love about poppies is you can just squash the brush down with much confidence, and you've suddenly created a poppy, honestly. I will go through it, I will go through each one, I promise, but at the same time it's all about just having a bit of confidence. And then the even better thing is getting sap green on the brush and just dabbing it so it touches the base and creates a sort of muddy little colour there, creates exactly what you would expect a poppy to look like. So let's go through that again, shall we? Okay, so red on the brush on the size 8, and I'm going to really fan out the bristles, but just sort of maybe taper it down a fraction. The best poppies are the ones that you don't try to control. And then with the rigger brush, sap green, and then just a little wiggle, I think. So I'm going to start filling in poppies of different heights and shapes and sizes, and we'll start to create our composition. The picture is starting to take shape, but it's also important to include a few of the unopened poppy sort of seed heads, and I want to pop in a few, so I thought we'd go through that as well. So I'm looking for the gaps, and I'm just going to use the sort of side of the size 2 brush and then just loop that and come down. So this is a painting with a sort of slightly loose, slightly abstract approach to it. So the sort of style of painting these stems down over one another in this way. So I'll come sort of from underneath here this time and do it like that. It's a bit more of an expressive approach, I suppose, to poppy painting. And I think that's just really fun to play around with your styles if you really enjoy my more sort of accurate botanical paintings that we do, and I absolutely adore them, but I think it's also so important to play and get out of your comfort zone sometimes. And I just think that the expression you get from loose watercolour is amazing. So here we go with another one. But actually this one, I think we can also add in a tiny bit of a centre. So I've got some Mars Black up here, and I'm going to just mix it in to some sap green, because I don't want to go fully 100%, and I'm just going to do that. I might just do a tiny bit more. There we go. Because I feel like we can see into the centre of that poppy. Okay, I'm going to keep moving my way along. We've now got a page of poppies, but they're kind of floating. We need to get a little bit more going on underneath. So I'm going to get some sap green, and I'm going to redistribute some green, sort of horizontal lines across, and then with trying out some different brushes, let's see. So I want to start to create a few sort of abstract little bits of foliage, because in our wildflower meadow I can tell you there is all sorts going on that I don't really recognise as sort of familiar plants. There's lots of interesting sort of green leaves poking out, so I'm just sort of using that swipe of green along there to just create some really nice delicate and dilute little bits of leaves. And the reason I've sort of ordered this, so we've done our poppies first, we're letting them dry, and then now I'm sort of bringing in new little bits into the gaps, is because of the sort of the sort of finished piece that I want, which is quite sort of abstract and loose and expressive. But it means that the poppies, even if we do sort of paint into them a bit like that, you see, they'll get a little bit of red, which is what I'm really hoping for, because I want to create, I basically want to show you another way of giving the sense of there being more poppies in there behind, with hints of red showing, but also it just having a slightly different look to the pale sort of red wet blobs that we put in the beginning. So I'm just going to repeat that process again for you, and I'll get in a swipe from this side this time. So a bit of green coming in, clean off the brush, and then if we need a little bit extra green, we can do that too. And I mean, it's really sort of, I'm trying to sort of unlearn a lot of the more formal painting techniques I know, and just trying to sort of play with the brush and get that expressive, wonderful wildness of nature out there, and just allow a little bit of red to bleed out of these poppies. So you can see how we're building this piece up in a very different way to how we did our previous landscape painting, and this is what this channel is all about. It's all about showing you new ways of experimenting. I'm always playing around with ideas, and honestly, I show you things that I'm like, I think this will work, and you just got to be brave, really. So I'm now adding in a sort of slightly more concentrated layer here, and again just bringing up little bits with a wet brush, and then once you've sort of exhausted that, you can then start to actually get a little bit of paint on your brush. And I think we're going to start to introduce a little bit of Prussian blue into our green as well. And just sort of starting to darken down those corners and blend So with this large amount of colour at the bottom, and I've included a little bit of shadow mix as well, I'm now going through with like a clean wet brush and actually sort of dragging the paint up a little bit and creating sort of highlights and just getting more textures in, and it's working really nicely. And that's the thing with these meadows, is you just need to keep working with curves and try not to get anything too sort of straight or flat in there. But I'm also quite pleased with the sort of undulating sort of ground we've got. So just to finish off, I'm just mixing in some French ultramarine into my sap green and using the rigger brush for some nice fine smooth lines in this dark colour that I want to sort of bring them right down. There we go, that's it. And I'd like to think this is going to be quite pushing some of you out of your comfort zone, which is not such a bad thing, to be honest, because I am just loving playing around with this poppy meadow, and it's not always the kind of painting that I naturally gravitate towards because I get a little bit scared, but you shouldn't be, because I'm just thrilled with the results here. And because those red poppies, we didn't mess about with them too much, they are really holding their own against all of this other grass that I'm putting in here, and they are, yeah, shining through. So the only thing we could do now is maybe add a tiny bit more of the black detail to the centres of some of those poppies now they're a little drier. So all I'm doing is just dabbing the brush in there and making sure we get a few little dots, some of the little filaments and anthers. But of course it's not all the poppies that we see the centre of, but I did sort of mention there were one or two. And there you have a loose watercolour wildflower poppy field. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that around you may have found some beautiful pops of colour popping out in the hedgerows. So I want to say a massive thank you to my patrons for their support, because that support enables me to keep creating these videos that everyone can enjoy. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and comment below to let me know how you're getting on. And of course, if you subscribe, then you'll never miss another video. Until next time, bye!